Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Friday, I guess. Thank you, Steve, for the introduction. My name is André Correa de Almeida. I'm a faculty member at the School of International Public Affairs at SIPA, and I want to thank Jerry for so graciously talking about the book we have coming out soon on precisely ways of how local government, New York City agencies in particular, are trying to implement and put it in practical terms all these great conversations we've been having here. But with no further ado, I would like to invite you to join me. Mayor Gary McCarthy, City of Schenectady. Welcome.
Thank you.
Jennifer Ansley, President of Link Intersection. We'll talk about the Link NYC, actually. and Samir Saini, Commissioner of Department of Information Technology and Telecommunications, New York, and citywide CIO.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Welcome.
Hey.
I didn't shake your hand. Welcome. Well, wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for choosing this session. Thank you for joining us. This is a little bit of who we are. We just want to learn a little bit about who you are as well. So a show of hands of who is New York City based. All right? A show of hands of who is US non-New York City based. Awesome. And finally, not least, from abroad, outside of the US. Okay, so we have basically the entire world with us. We have 45 minutes. I would like to leave time for Q&A. So the commitment is that we will have an open conversation for 35 minutes, and then have an equally open Q&A period when the time comes. I'm very happy to be here today and mediate this or moderate this panel in particular for two main reasons. One is because we have together a policymaker, an implementer, a practitioner. We have the private sector, myself humbly representing the academia, and all of you, the civil society. So I think we have all the key players to connect our ideas better and in a smarter way. So to our conversation. Mayor McCarthy, I searched your website today, and in the breaking news or the news update feature, 3 words stand out. And Mayor McCarthy did not even invite me to check their website. So I did it my own. The 3 words are love. There's a day dedicated to parks, so love for parks. Partner and partner. So explain us, please, how the idea of connectivity and the idea of smart is helping you moving these love and partner agenda forward.
It's a key word in terms of how you deploy a smart city concept. And the real value in smart city applications, the collection of data, the exchanging of data, that information that has greater value than we may have realized in the past. I look at internally in the city, how I get the police department, who's very conservative, don't want to share their data with anybody, to share it with our development office, to share it with our housing code enforcement, and at the same time bring in the school district, in the healthcare community, in the business community. And you have different willingness to share. There are some protocols in place for the protection of data, so that there's some things from the school district that are not ready for public disclosure. There's healthcare data that may be HIPAA protected. And how do you work through those protocols to really form a partnership that allows the community to grow and to use the emerging technologies and the sensor-based technologies to collect all the data that is coming in and make practical and pragmatic decisions in terms of city policy and the delivery of services.
Wonderful. And so, Jennifer, how is the private sector helping move forward these love and connectedness agenda?
Yeah, no, we believe really strongly that giving people the right information at the right time in the places where they are in cities is a critical part of making them get the most out of their experience, their urban experience. And so we're replacing the payphones in New York City and in other cities around the country and around the world with gigabit free Wi-Fi kiosks that have phone charging, tablets to access city information and community services. And we think that's really about, it generates a lot of love for the city when people know what they can get out of it. And that's really our mission, and it's the project that we've been able to implement here in New York City, in London, and we're rolling out in Philadelphia and other cities around the country in the coming months.
Mm-hmm. So, Commissioner Saini, at the implementation level, and you represent the body that basically is in charge of mediating this relationship between the decision maker and the partnerships. And as we were preparing, I have to confess that as we were preparing this conversation, we come up with a motto for this session. The main theme is smart and connected cities. The motto we come up with together was keep it real. So we've been talking about partnerships and dialogue and collaboration for 2 days, if not for most of our lives. But let's keep it real into some of the challenges and strategies to overcome those challenges. So, Commissioner, enlighten us on how this can be implemented.
So in the spirit of keeping it real, which I always seem to do, maybe too much so. With regard to public-private partnerships, right? Like the City of New York and Intersection have today with our Link NYC kiosks. I think the way that this works most effectively is when, I guess first off, there's acceptance of the reality that the incentives of either party are not the same. They're not. The bottom line is the city has specific goals to serve the public. The private sector has goals that to be accountable to their, depending on the organization, their shareholders and their investors. And the truth is, they're in most cases not the same. Now, to create a functional and strong relationship, a smart city, private-public partnership, once you accept that, I think that's progress. And then I think the next step is each party putting themselves in the other person's shoes, thinking like them, and then brainstorming what is it, right, that I would need to be successful. Because when Jen puts herself in my shoes, and I put mine in hers, that's the beginnings, right, of what will be the foundation for a very strong relationship. Often, I think that doesn't happen, where there's possibilities for really strong private-public partnerships, but we're not willing to sort of put ourselves in the other person's shoes. And we're also pretending, to some extent, right, that these incentives, right, that we have aligned incentives. And so, sounds sort of, a bit edgy, but I think it's candid, and I think it's true.
And actually, the case of your agency and the intersection together with sidewalks are actually a love story, right? Talking about love, right?
Love story.
Because you made Link NYC possible. But before we get to the ups and downs of that love story, former Mayor Michael Nutter yesterday, and now a question for you, Mayor McCarthy, was asking the private sector to be patient with the city officials, and city officials to be patient with the private sector, because not only they have different agendas, they operate in different time frame perspectives. So a question for you, how is this idea of smart is helping your agenda moving forward, or not? Because some argue that the buzz create difficulties as well. The buzzword create difficulties as well. So from your experience.
Smart city, it's a broad concept, and it means different things to different people. Depending on which set of data used, 90% of the data in the world today was either created in the last 24 months or in the last 36 months. So there is a huge amount of information that is coming in that is available to whether you're a municipal leader, private sector, education community, and it's how do you sort that out and not be overwhelmed by the tremendous amount of information that's out there, but make a pragmatic decision to be able to focus on something that is actionable, something that is realistic and produces value for whether it's your community, whether it's your business, or whether it's just your household. And so that's, I think, the challenge that we face. And it's just a great example of taking the old phone booth, some of that infrastructure that otherwise would have gone around to become urban blight. It's been adapted to something that has value. It's a great reuse. And it's an exciting example of how communities can work together with the private sector to create real value and greater level of service for the residents in their respective communities.
I think that's right. I think also that you really have to, cities have to focus on the problems that they're trying to solve and not let, some concept of some, end game get in the way of delivering real results immediately, and I think that that's one of the things we were able to do with the payphones, where there was, a real sense of urgency around solving this issue of antiquated infrastructure. And there was the sort of organization at the city level to be able to push that forward without waiting for some solution that was going to solve every problem that the city had. They focused on one asset class that they had where they felt they could really make a difference. And that level of connectivity, we're bringing gigabit speed fiber to every single link in all 5 boroughs all across the city. And that infrastructure is there to be built on top of over time.
Yeah, so picking up on that theme, so I've lost count on how many times I've been asked what smart in smart city means, and I feel like my answer always sort of evolves, right, depending on the climate and the environment I'm in and what's going on and at that time within our city, but I think fundamentally, setting aside IoT sensors and data analytics, right, to improve operational efficiency of agencies and delivery of services to the public. A connected city is a prerequisite to being a smart city, and I mean that in multiple ways. One is the partnership we have with Link and providing high-speed public Wi-Fi on our streets. That's part of connected. I think the other one that's perhaps the bigger obstacle for New York City is this digital divide we have. And per a broadband report that was just published a few weeks ago, 31% of homes in New York City without broadband. And that's equivalent to the entire population of the city of Houston. And when you think about, that problem, right? And you think about all these really cool, neat tools, apps for citizens to use, digital services, they're useless to that 31% because, well, they don't have connectivity at the most basic level. So I think there's amazing technology that's being deployed for transportation and public safety and health, but if you don't provide that ubiquitous, affordable, equitably distributed connectivity, right, on the streets, in our homes, the full value, right, of these amazing solutions won't be fully realized.
And to keep it real, we are much better identifying problems than addressing solutions, right? So tell me, what is the city doing? What could the city do to address that last mile shortage?
Sure. So quite a bit. So the good news is the DoITT agency, our agency within New York City, is actually responsible for connectivity and all the things I just described. We oversee the franchisee a group of franchisees that drive and deliver the installation of telecommunications equipment on all the poles in New York City. We're the organization that oversees the franchisees for cable and broadband in the home, which is Verizon, Fios, and Charter Spectrum. We are directly in control, right, of this effort. And I can tell you that we will be taking some aggressive action over the next year to close that 31% for broadband in the home. We're also going to go after ensuring, from a cellular connectivity perspective, that we have equitable, high-performing cellular service, right, all over our city, particularly disadvantaged neighborhoods.
So can you commit to a timeline where that digital divide will be fully bridged? When do you expect those 30% of the population to be connected?
So,
1 year, 5 years, a decade?
So, the good news is we've been given a target, which is always.
I don't want to put you on the spot. If you have an answer.
Sometimes what you need. So Mayor de Blasio our mayor has made the public commitment to deliver broadband, affordable broadband for all New Yorkers by 2025.
Okay.
And we will do that. We will beat that. We will beat that.
Everyone's taking note. 2025, 100% of the New York is connected. Mayor McCarthy, keep it real and share with us the problem you have within the scope of this conversation, and a strategy or a way that you are thinking of addressing that challenge. I don't like the word problem, sorry, the challenge.
Well, Schenectady, I appointed a Smart City Commission. We started to interview vendors, looking at all the exciting options that are out there. And our roadblock was our local utility, National Grid, that it was very cumbersome. They were not very progressive in terms of their thinking. They owned the utility poles, and it was really an obstacle to doing a deployment. Now, over the last 9 months, National Grid has changed their position entirely. We're in the final stages of a REV application before the Public Service Commission, where that's part of Governor Cuomo's strategy for energy statewide, reinventing the energy vision. They now have embraced the whole concept. This Public Service Commission approval will allow for the replacement of all the Cobra headlights in the city with LED fixtures, a very basic undertaking, but we'll get substantial energy savings from that. But simultaneously, we want to do deployment of Wi-Fi, cellular, and we'll also have a low-pan network that will create a mesh in that overall citywide deployment. Again, we're working with the city, the county government, school district, business community to take advantage of the emerging technologies. And we're doing some of the things with National Grid. Today, if you have different options that you can put on the light pole, each of those features, whether it might be a camera, a sensor, a communication point, would require an electric meter. That meter becomes cumbersome. There's also a minimum charge. I think in the Capital District of New York, it's $15 or $19 a month. The device will not use that much electricity in the entire month. Part of this REV demonstration project, we will work with National Grid to deploy device-based meters. So there'll be chips that are in the light, chips that would be in the camera head, chips that would be in the Wi-Fi access point, or any other device that's put on the pole that will allow separate metering. It may also allow device-based pricing, which it's exciting. It's part of the deployment. We're fortunate in Schenectady where we were the last community that Verizon laid fiber, so we had a prior fiber network under the current spectrum cable television provider. So we basically have 2 lines of fiber in front of every business and every residence in the community, and we're looking to also work with those vendors, but complement with the wireless deployment that'll create a platform that's what we talked about, to take advantage of the emerging technologies.
Wonderful. So Jennifer, if it's okay to keep with this love relationship metaphor, again, a lot has been talked about partnerships and PPPs and all different types of arrangements. Tell me, and keeping it real, and maybe building upon former Mayor Michael Nutter's words yesterday, highlight a difficulty or a challenge that you've been facing, and now how is the private sector trying to, in this particular relationship around Link NYC, address them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's an interesting issue that you're facing on the energy connectivity side. What I say about Link NYC is that as we work to bring gigabit Wi-Fi to every New Yorker and visitor and worker, what we find is that everything wireless is wired to something. And that means is that you have to, you have to lay the infrastructure, you have to dig up the streets, you have to find the sites and the locations, and those can be, massively challenging in the crowded ecosystem of the New York City streetscape or any city really. And so having a coordinated approach with that, being able to work with your partners at the city agencies to navigate those issues, to address them collaboratively and constructively, recognizing that while the parties may have different interests fundamentally at a business level, there is a commitment to roll out the program and to do it effectively and efficiently, and there are shared goals around those activities, and that cooperation is really the foundational underpinning of being able to deliver these kinds of services at scale. And so I think it's day-to-day communication. It's really a basis of a really strong partnership and an acknowledgement that these are difficult and complex challenges that need to be resolved really on a site-by-site basis almost.
So if I had to ask one key word that mediates the pushes or not, the idea of collaboration forward, what would be for you that key word?
To me, the only word is collaboration.
And so what would be what's the key concept in your experience to move collaboration forward?
It's really about communication.
Communication, got it. That's, I wanted to, at the practical level.
I got it right.
Yes. A+. Last topic before we open up for Q&A. We were talking before, Commissioner saying, of an idea that I'm incredibly passionate about. And we haven't been talking about that much throughout this event, which is interagency collaboration. We talk about government, private companies, citizens. Share with us a little bit, because it's a key concept I'm sorry to mention it again, it's a key concept in the book that myself, Jerry Alton, and 10 other universities came together and built, the idea of the public entrepreneurs interacting between each other.
Sure. So, much of the talk, right, at conferences like this is around collaboration from the perspective of public-private partnerships and academia, right? And that is huge. And by the way, it works, right? And we're perfect examples of that. What I don't think is talked about enough is collaboration, is looking inward, right? And evaluating to what degree we have collaboration across individual agencies in our respective cities. And I think there's gold there, right? That is just waiting, right, to be dug up, right, and leveraged. I can't tell you how many meetings I have, and I've only been in this role for, still counting, weeks, discussions with commissioners around the need for data from another agency. That would infinitely improve, right? The services that they're delivering to the public and all New Yorkers. It's the demand is there, the value is there, but it seems like a thing that we're really challenged with solving for. There are reasons why it's challenging, though. There needs to be a simple and easy way to be able to share data across agencies in a secure way. The reality is there is some data that the police department has or the water department has that perhaps they don't want to expose right to another agency. That's okay. But perhaps there's some that they do, that they can, and there could be some kind of exchange right of that data in a secure way. And so I think that's got to be a real focus, right, for cities. It has to be solved for. Mayors, in particular, I think, are in a position to really look at this hard, right? And because it's not really a data exchange problem, right?
It may be a communications problem.
It's a communications sort of sort of challenge, right? It's dissolving these walls, in these agency silos.
I work in an university.
Or at least making them porous, right? So that we can at least start getting horizontal value. Right?
And what about city to city? This is agencies to agency. What about cities to cities?
As you have so much data coming in, to do the analysis solely in one community, I believe you're not taking advantage of all the information that's out there. You have to look at a regional approach, a statewide approach to really formulate the appropriate public policy that gives you the best results and actionable items from having that information. And it's an exciting time we live in, but at the same breath, it's a challenging time to get people to talk about sharing the information and then to be able to get it in a format and be able to analyze it to make an appropriate decision from it.
Wonderful. So as promised, we now have 12 minutes. We heard academia.
Well, wanted to share one more.
Absolutely.
One more.
In the spirit of sharing.
In the spirit of sharing, and in the spirit of the theme of love and connectivity. Is that where we were, right? So Jen and I would like to share something that I think very much aligns to these themes. Something we think New Yorkers will love, and something that is very much about connectivity and connecting people. One of the more recent wins with City Bridge and New York City has been deploying real-time bus transit information on the Link NYC kiosks across our city. It's been a huge win so far, right? And it's, again, a step in the right direction to help New Yorkers get around this city, right, with real-time information. The news we'd like to share is we're going even further to provide additional real-time transit information on all links, and there's 1,500 or so deployed right now, and of course the goal of 7,500 right over several years. But getting more real-time information, transit information on these links to help New Yorkers get around the city, particularly if you're where I live, which is in Williamsburg, and the L train shutting down really soon. And it would be really nice to know different ways to get from A to B. So it's going to be just one of the many things that we're collaborating on, right, to start sort of reshaping these Link NYC kiosks from not just high-speed free public Wi-Fi, but becoming sort of digital public service assistants with a real focus on transit, which is something we all fight every day.
So we started with love stories, and then now we have a love practical examples. So we have 10 minutes for Q&A. Go ahead. Introduce yourself, please, and then you may or not direct the question to one of my guests.
George Friedlander. I've started working on a book on the intersection between technological change and states and cities, specifically more on the funding and operational side. But one of the things that I've observed over the last several years in looking at this stuff and collaboration and issues about getting parts of a government to work together. The siloing and turf issues in many cities are massive. Part of that relates to funding capacity, part of it relates to power, part of it relates to turf, and half a dozen other things, but those are the three that come to mind. How do, especially in a massive city like New York, but in general, how do you overcome those kind of turf and power type challenges?
So I would start with Mayor McCarthy.
It's a challenge in the city of Schenectady, which is a city of 65,000 people, give or take a few. And you have to work at it every day. And hopefully what the breaking point becomes is when people give a little bit and they see the additional information that is out there, it makes their job easier, it produces better and quicker and more sustainable results, and everybody looks good. Even though you're going to fight, and fight may be too strong a word, but people want to protect their information, they want to keep it siloed, and it's a environment that we all have to work on to change that. It's to share information, to create a platform so people can learn from it, people can engage, and people can develop ideas, products, and concepts that sitting here today we may not have even thought of yet. That's why it's such an exciting time to be involved in this.
Maybe we can collect 3 questions and then we will have a conversation.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Michael Bosicki. I'm a contributor to CNN Opinion and The Digital Divide. Well, I'm working on a book called Digital Crack. It's on smartphone addiction. Samir, I'm wondering, it's a laudable effort to provide...
Microphone sound louder, please.
It's a laudable effort to provide broadband access to everybody. I've been traveling the country and finding kids without broadband having to do their homework on Wi-Fi-enabled school buses,
Right.
going to Starbucks, stuff like that. However, is there any thought to providing the actual devices as well? Because many families cannot afford them. Yeah.
Great question. So the solution to achieving digital equity, right, and closing the digital divide is it's sort of a three-legged stool, right? The first is access, right? It's the connectivity piece we've talked about. You need the connectivity, right? The second is device, right? You need the means by which, right, you leverage the connectivity you have, right, to actually do your work, like a kid doing their homework. And the third is actually digital literacy, which is even further, because I think we take for granted that there's a huge population, right, particularly in New York City, that really just haven't interacted and really know how to navigate, right, the internet and the services provided, particularly public services, digital services from the city. I could tell you that we recognize these are the three parts, right, to really attacking digital equity, and there'll be strategies to address all of them. One thing I did in Atlanta that I thought that actually worked pretty well was a public-private partnership with a cellular carrier, right, that subsidized a tablet that acted as a Wi-Fi hotspot that we gave out to low-income families to deliver, not really to kill all 3 birds, right, with one stone. The device itself running on cellular, giving the connectivity, and actually also offering digital literacy and free books and free access to content. There are ways to do this. In large part, it's through collaboration with the private sector. So,
let's collect those 2 questions, please, and then we address them.
All right. Mayor McCarthy, going back to your point about data protection, cybersecurity, I know your city is participating in the Global City Team Challenges.
A little bit trouble here.
Yeah, so going back to data security and cyber protection, your point earlier, I know your city is participating in the Global City Team Challenges. How do you balance innovation on one hand, which gives you, tremendous potential, but on the other hand, there's potential risks associated with it. So how do you balance fostering innovation on one hand and, on the other hand, just going back to like the tried and true? Actually, the same question probably applies to you too, Commissioner Saini, with the New York City Cyber Command side of things.
Okay, take note, please. Another question? Yeah, at the back, please.
How much time do you have?
Hi, this question is primarily for Jennifer. You've talked a little bit about the citywide applications of the link technology, but as a person who lives near 3rd Avenue, I'm aware that there's a hyper-local potential as well in terms of wayfinding or small business development, and I'd love to hear what's on the menu from a link perspective about how to use the technology in those ways as well. Thanks.
Okay, so let's stick with these two first. Let's start with you addressing the question that Jennifer.
Again, it's an exciting time. You want to not stifle creativity. The city of Schenectady, we generally don't publicly comment on it. We have at least 40 attempts a day to breach our security, the firewalls, and it is something that everyone has to be cognizant of in terms of simple maintenance, protection of passwords, to today where attempts to breach security may be sanctioned by a foreign government. And so it's an ongoing challenge, and people have got to think about it every day, really every time they're using a device.
With regard to 3rd Avenue and the local link opportunities, we agree that it's really intended to be, as we were discussing, a beloved part of the community where it's located. And so each of our screens is individually addressable. As we deploy links around the city, we meet with the communities, the businesses, the local businesses. We offer an opportunity for small businesses in the area to advertise for free on the link. We work with our technologists to develop sort of sophisticated ways of surfacing hyperlocal, real-time information on the transit approaches we talked about with bus time, with other MTA information coming soon, and really, trying to drive at making the screens and the information on them relevant and contextual to the environment. We work with some of our greatest ad clients to do crowdsourced information about the playlists in an area, or being able to say, the UV index is high today, don't forget your sunscreen. Those kinds of messages that we think acknowledge that the units are in real space and real time and real places, and that people can get more out of them if they respond to the environment that they're in and are dynamically driven to be able to provide that information in real-time way. When we had snowstorms, we worked with the City of New York to get out information that schools are closed, those kinds of opportunities to really, be a source of truth for the neighborhood and be something that is really informative and helpful. So,
I want to give a chance to one more question here. Microphone, please.
Oh, we're done. No more questions.
What's the question, please?
This was Commissioner about the availability of the internet for the kids in the school. So, Brooklyn Public Library is developing a similar program where they bring the low-income families. So they have
Offer Wi-Fi hotspots for rent, like books. Yeah, it's a great idea.
the question is, are you collaborating with DoITT to make it citywide for all the schools? And instead of having only Brooklyn Public Library, but that's a very, very
True. So the short answer is we will.
Rephrase the question, please, so that everyone understands.
So the question is, there's an effort in the Brooklyn Public Library to issue Wi-Fi hotspots, I believe. Like you would rent a book, right? You could rent out a Wi-Fi hotspot to immediately bring connectivity into your home, and your kids can use to do their homework. It's a great model, and the question is, can we do that beyond Brooklyn? Go all in to and collaborate with DoITT. Collaboration is the key. So the answer is yes. I mean, there's multiple ways to get connectivity quickly, right? Within these homes that don't, particularly the 31%. And this is one way, one of many to do it quickly. So we will be collaborating with all the agencies that have a stake, right, in this. So.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
everyone, and happy weekend.